Welcome to the InGeneral podcast. My name's Jack, and I'm joined with Christopher Pugh.
How's it going?
It is going not too bad, buddy. How are you?
Yeah, and not too bad. It's a beautiful, rainy Sunday afternoon.
We finally had rain here. It's been sunny for about 3 months, dry. All the lake beds dried up.
Wow.
And past this weekend's just been hammering it down.
Oh yeah,
it's been nice.
We've had plenty of rain, although we've had a lot of hot ones as well. But yeah, no, there's been plenty of rain around here.
It's refreshing. It's nice to see the streams running again.
Seriously. Yeah, I've lived at a good spot where like I'm getting a lot of the East Coast rain, but not getting the East Coast flooding. So it's a good happy mix.
Yeah, that's kind of the best of both right now. It's certainly worse places to be. So the podcast, news, Jurassic Park, those are tags and keywords.
Hashtags.
But I guess the most pressing thing to discuss is the CinemaCon footage.
Yeah. So I'm sure that everybody listening to this at this point is familiar with at least that there's been like a little bit of a marketing blitz. A weird marketing blitz, but a marketing blitz nonetheless, where a little like block of Jurassic news dropped. Starting with, I think it was Jurassic World Evolution 2's trailer, then the CinemaCon footage, then Jurassic World Aftermath. But CinemaCon is obviously the highlight of all of that. Yeah,
so CinemaCon is an event that's put on for movie studios, theater owners, things like that, right? In Las Vegas.
Yeah, it's like a trade show.
Preview footage. Yeah, it's a trade show. And they've done it before. Obviously, Jurassic has been there before. I think Jurassic World was there. I think Fallen Kingdom was there. But this time, it seemed journalists were able to describe the footage that was shown in explicit detail, which I don't remember happening for the past two movies.
I think for the past two movies, what they showed was very limited, and then oftentimes if they showed anything more, it was behind closed doors. So typically it would be like, oh, they got a very, very limited public preview type thing that they could talk about, and then anything else that was a little bit more intensive in terms of footage was for the behind closed doors like audience. And this time they did it differently, and it's strange. It's a very strange way to hear about the return of the original trio or whatnot for the first time.
Yeah, no, it really is. It's I think everybody was anticipating it. Everybody knows that was something that's coming. Seeing, the original trilogy, but we haven't seen them on screen yet. We haven't seen them in a trailer or a teaser or even a photo. Mm-mm. So it's a big thing. And while the CinemaCon footage obviously hasn't come out. It's I guess the thing for me, ultimately it comes down to the Dilophosaurus, right? They can describe all the footage they want, but the fact that the Dilophosaurus is a dinosaur that has not been seen since the very first Jurassic Park.
That's not how you should find out it's in the movie. It's honestly, It probably shouldn't have been in marketing. I mean, outside of leaks or whatnot, nobody should have known that Dilophosaurus is in Jurassic World Dominion until they sat down in theaters and saw it. But if they were going to put it in marketing, it should have been in the it shouldn't have been you should have been able to see it first, not hear about it first. I guess is like everybody. Reasonably, everybody should have had the opportunity to see the Dilophosaurus at the same time and be surprised by it, rather than going, "Oh, Dilophosaurus is back. Cool. What?"
Yeah. It seems odd that a journalist was able to describe that, and that's kind of how we found out. Maybe there should have been an embargo on some of the things they could have said.
Yeah, but how do you do that? Like, you can't give people like, "Oh, you can talk about this, but you can't talk about that." Most people wouldn't know.
Well, to be fair, we have the same with Camp Cretaceous. We get given a list of things we can and can't say before and after the release. So
sure, but
it would technically be the same thing. You just say to them, you can describe certain scenes, but don't describe specifics. Don't describe the dinosaurs you see. Just say dinosaurs. I think there's just many ways they could have avoided that, and I guess it wasn't intentional, but spoiling something that's been a fan favorite and something people have wanted since the first one. To appear in a movie and kind of spoiling it in that way, it's just odd because, as you said, it would have been such a great reveal in a trailer. Imagine if we all saw it together.
Yeah, just as like the stinger of the trailer or something like that. But honestly, the way that footage was described, and in a few, you can maybe go do a rundown of everything that was described. But the footage that was described read a lot more like a behind closed doors presentation for theater owners, and that's typically what they will see, like the people that own theaters and distribution centers, to give them an idea of what they're going to be putting in their cinemas and why they want to carry this movie. what they showed is not typically what CinemaCon gets for a first look. If nobody's seen anything from the movie, CinemaCon usually doesn't get big, explosive features like that for journalists. So it's a little bit of a weird thing where it seems like it was something that was cut for one audience, which is more of the behind closed doors audience, and then they opted to show it to the journalist audience, which again, it's weird because like imagine if like with The Force Awakens, like if you read about Luke Skywalker's return or something like that, like it was talked about like, yeah, Luke Skywalker standing on a mountain, blah blah. It's just like, or like the Chewie we're home scene, if it was like described first like outside, it's like no, you want to have that happen as a candid reaction where everybody can see it at the same time. It's also just there are things in there that just shouldn't have been in a trailer, ultimately. Yeah, but
for sure,
it sounds like a really good featurette. It just sounds like something that would be put out like a month before the film comes out.
Yeah, so it sounded like a complete sort of behind the scenes. There was interviews with cast members, interviews with Colin describing, I think the main question was, would humans survive in a world populated by dinosaurs? The answer is no, obviously.
I don't understand why that's being said like it's a new profound concept when it's literally the concept of every movie so far.
Then the argument is obviously, well, no, they're talking about on the mainland. It's like it's the same principle.
It's really the same difference.
Humans and dinosaurs together, they're going to run. But it's, it sounded like a really great behind the scenes. We had Laura Dern and Sam Neill and Jeff Goldblum talking about their time working on the first movie and then working on this one. And that's something that everybody wants to see. I believe the footage began with Steven Spielberg on set of the original Jurassic Park, and he was describing a film prop to Joseph Mazzello, so the kid that plays Tim, and it was Hammond's cane, the amber cane, and I believe he was describing the actual mosquito, saying, this is where it all began. And I think, as we've seen with some of the early marketing for Dominion, the posters and things like that, we know amber is playing a big theme. I think that mosquito, John Hammond's amber cane, John Hammond's amber, the mosquito, I think it all comes back. It goes full circle in this movie, so they're obviously focusing on that. And then the movie the featurette cuts between those kind of interviews with people like Colin and footage from the movie, and there was many shots of different environments. There was snowy environments, desert environments, there was European cities, there was scene with Claire running along rooftops, which reminded people of Sarah Harding in The Lost World. There was a scene that sounds really cool to me of Chris Pratt, Bryce Dallas Howard dropping down into a sort of like
a tomb or something,
Indiana Jones style tomb.
I was reading about that. I was like, I wonder what is going on. How does the movie go there? That sounds awesome. What a unexpected environment.
It is going to be exciting that a Jurassic movie finally has new environments to work with, and we know we're getting snow. We know we're getting European cities like Malta or whatever that stands in for.
Malta is Malta. Malta is Malta.
Malta's Malta. Yeah. Okay. We know that.
Yes,
we do.
Yes, there was an image. There's some merchandise that came out or didn't come out, but merchandise images.
Sure. Merchandise seems to be the key now. Look for puzzles on Amazon, and you'll find Dominion spoilers.
Yeah, so silly.
But it's there's some really exciting footage, and then they said there was a sequence of original trilogy members with the new cast looking up at a T-Rex in a forest, which is no doubt the original T-Rex, who is in California somewhere, as we saw in the IMAX preview.
I suppose I wouldn't be surprised if they can't tell the difference between their species, though, and that might not even be a T-Rex. It could be something else entirely. So
could be the Giga.
Could be that. Could be. I mean, I could see them mistaking a Carnotaurus or an Allosaurus for a T-Rex also, so I think we'll have to wait and see what species that is. But
for sure, I have to admit, so basically we put together a video, so if you haven't checked it out already, there'll be a link in the description. You can watch our breakdown of the footage. But I read about 10, 15 different write-ups and tweets and stuff on what people had seen and compiled it all, and there were a lot of glaring contradictions, but not somebody trying to lie, just people, it apparently was all very quick. It was
quick and snappy.
About 90 seconds, very snappy. People tried to describe, and only one article, if I remember correctly, actually described the Dilophosaurus.
It's very
interesting. It must have been a very quick shot.
Brief shot, but it is interesting because there's a lot of mainstream sort of like geek blogs and whatnot that wrote about it, and you'd think that they would be cued in and be like, yo, even if they can't remember the name, yo, that Spitter from the first movie was there. But only one highlighted that. I think one of the other cool scenes that I'm excited for is the scene where they described Owen riding on horseback chasing dinosaurs. That sounds like it could be a lot of cool. I'm imagining he's like wrangling them up or something like that.
Well, they actually described it as riding on the back of a dinosaur.
Yeah, that one's wrong. He's riding on the back of a horse. All the other ones say he's riding on the back of a horse.
Interesting. Yeah. Okay, yeah, that makes a little bit more sense. But then at the end of the day, it's Jurassic World franchise. I wouldn't put it past him to have him riding a dinosaur.
Yeah, he's apparently riding a horse and chasing dinosaurs, but the one said like he's riding a dinosaur being chased by dinosaurs, but some of the
being chased by horses.
But yeah, he's apparently riding horseback chasing dinosaurs, which is cool because with Jurassic World Evolution 2, I think that we might be able to get a feeling for the setting of the beginning of the movie, which is like wrangling dinosaurs up and whatnot. I kind of imagine that maybe Owen's job is like a dino wrangler at that point in the world. Like he's got the experience and non-lethal dino wrangling.
He's got the experience. He's got the looks. He's got the charm.
Yeah, he looks like he should be riding a horse, and I think it happens.
Yeah, no, that'll be interesting. Collins made it very, very kind of
adventure
Western inspiration there.
Yeah,
it does seem very Indiana Jones. Most of the descriptions did say Mission Impossible meets Indiana Jones meets Jurassic Park, and I think if you listen back to our podcast from years ago when we first started hearing about Jurassic World 3, I think we all definitely summarized at some point. It sounds like it's going to be a Mission Impossible movie,
like a globe-trotting adventure.
Globe-trotting, yeah. And hopefully it all pulls together and all makes sense. There seems like there's so much to this movie, such a variety of stuff. But some of the leaked Malta footage.
Not footage.
And
you mean images?
Well, the photographs and the footage of Owen driving around.
On a motorcycle.
Some of that stuff was described.
Being chased by the Atrociraptors.
Yeah, so we know that now, being chased by the Atrociraptors. Most of the descriptions called them Velociraptors.
Yes, yeah. To be fair, I mean,
who knows I don't know.
They look raptor-like. I mean, they look different. You can tell they're different. But the problem is that the Jurassic Park franchise and Jurassic World franchise is played so fast and loose with redesigning its animals within the same species that now that we're getting like different types of raptors, it's like, well, I'm used to the Velociraptor design changing so much, so who's to say it's not a Velociraptor unless the movie says these are Atrociraptors, which are a real dinosaur, by the way.
They are indeed. Yeah. See, we missed you on that one. We couldn't figure it out. We don't have Google.
I mean, a name like that seems so marketing. I mean, it's very, Indominus or Diabolus Rex.
That's what we speculated. It sounds like Diabolus Rex and things like that. You remember when the Indominus was called that?
Yeah. Oh man.
We had those. Somebody sent
D-Rex.
us those photos of the Indominus Rex paddock, but it was all the signage was D-Rex.
Yeah.
Diabolus Rex.
Man, what time? I mean, we've said it before, we've said it in the past, like, when we found out about the Indoraptor, we're like, why is it an Indoraptor? Why isn't it just an evil raptor squad, basically? Like, that makes the most sense. Like, and I get the feeling the Atrociraptors are going to fill that role. There's 4 of them. They've got names. They seemingly are chasing Owen, so it's like the inverse of like his raptor squad. Like, I'm guessing this is the continuation of that plot thread, is my best guess. It makes the most sense. I mean, somebody named them, so they seem like
we definitely need some evil raptors back.
Yeah, I mean, I'd prefer wild raptors. I would genuinely very much prefer wild raptors over like captivity, like specifically designed raptors. Like, each of them look different. And it's like, okay, I kind of miss when like you knew what a species looked like, and then the dimorphism was like, sexual dimorphism or whatnot. But I don't know. They do look, what we've seen of the Atrociraptors, they do look really cool. They fit the Jurassic aesthetic pretty well. They've got these weird like boxy faces, but they also look very, from some of the angles on some of the renders that leaked out on the puzzles, they look very Crash McCreary. There's the one, I think its name is Red, and the pose on it really reminds me of that old drawing.
Is that the red one?
Yeah. Yeah, the red one is red. But it reminds me of the pose when that old piece of concept art when the 3 raptors are chasing the fence, jumping at the fence for Jurassic Park. Mm-hmm. Red's render is like exactly in that pose, and like the face, it's got that same shape and everything of the head and that angle. I'm like, I feel like that's where the inspiration came from. So, I mean, because if you're following rumors, you know that the Atrociraptors were early in development. They're called Deinonychus before they switched over to Atrociraptors, and in that concept art, the raptors there in that Jurassic Park concept art were Deinonychus, so it kind of goes full circle.
Deinonychus is a species of raptor too.
It is another species, but it's a species we know a lot more about than Atrociraptor, and from what I've seen of those renders, their head shape does not match that of a Deinonychus. So they probably went, yeah, we're too far off model. What else does this look like? And Atrociraptor is basically only known from a jaw fragment. So they had a lot of room to play with speculation there. So
that makes it fair, I guess, especially because you consider these are not InGen bred dinosaurs. We know,
I guess not.
They're more than likely going to be another company, whether it's Biocenter, probably going to be Biocenter at this point, but
unless it's Manticore.
Yeah. Manticore. How do you genuinely think Manticore is going to tie in, if at all?
I think that Manticore was designed as a sort of a MacGuffin, that because they weren't allowed to use Biosyn in the way they wanted to use Biosyn, so they introduced Manticore and didn't really think of it. Didn't think that fans were going to latch onto it as much as they did, and didn't have a big giant plan. I'll be curious to see if Colin incorporated Manticore as an Easter egg due to people being like, Manticore, what the fuck? Like, all
those YouTube videos.
Yeah.
What and who are Manticore?
I could see Manticore getting threaded in, but I imagine that when they went with Manticore for Camp Cretaceous, there probably wasn't some grand master plan. I think it was it was a Biosyn parable, and it's likely that whatever the story that Dominion has with Biosyn, it's likely that it wouldn't make sense for Biosyn to be stealing Sinoceratops DNA in 2015. That's why I think they changed it. It just didn't make sense.
Yeah. But I think in season 3 of Camp Cretaceous, Dr. Wu confirmed that Mills was running the Manticore show. Mm-hmm. He was the boss.
No, I don't think that's what it was. I think we found out that Mills is the boss of Wu at like that time, like Mills, but I don't think it has anything to do with Manticore. Because Wu was already working for Mills, so then why would Mills need to steal DNA without like Wu's help?
But then maybe Manticore just...
I think Manticore are just sort of a MacGuffin to push the plot along and to create drama with Sammy. To be honest with you, I mean, it would be cool if they incorporate them more. I hope Camp Cretaceous makes it make sense, and it would be really cool if Dominion ties it in. But I don't think it was originally designed as like some sort of grand master plan. But it would be cool if they are the ones that are behind the Atrociraptors or something, if it's not Biosyn.
Yeah, either way, I mean, it would be interesting. We know that there's a hell of a lot of new species in this movie, and a lot of feathered dinosaurs, so obviously that's not InGen. Could be tied to Wu, but either way, Biosyn are definitely heavily into breeding their own dinosaurs at this point.
Yeah, I mean, hell, for all we know, although I don't know, maybe this doesn't make sense, but for all we know, the Triceratops from Big Rock, maybe that's a Biosyn dinosaur. I'm not sure if that would really make sense, because why would it be free at the same time as like the the InGen dinosaurs? But
sure.
It also was never on InGen's list. But then again, plenty of dinosaurs weren't, and they just sort of show up when they decide, like, hey, this would be a cool dinosaur to bring into the movies. So,
yeah, people won't question it. So, but the CinemaCon footage did sound really interesting, and while obviously it sounded like the kind of thing that should be released it sounded like a genuine featurette, like you would get, they did a very similar thing for Force Awakens. Do you remember the video that began with the clapper, the slate?
Yeah, and it was like started with the classic, like the original movies, and led. It does seem like it's something that celebrated all the generations of Jurassic throughout like the films, and really built. And that's what this movie is building on. It's bringing the original trilogy back. It's bringing Dodson back. It's bringing all these elements from the original film in the original trilogy, and it's really tying them together into Jurassic World. It's really this cross-generational film. So it does sound like something that could be released publicly, or could have a variant that's created for public consumption. I mean, it just seems like it was something that we shouldn't have read. Like, it's something that we shouldn't have known about yet. If we were going to hear about it, it definitely shouldn't have been like our first real description of character-based footage of the film.
No, I definitely think it sounds like the kind of footage that should be released. It just sounds like something perfect, and I think I speculated in the video maybe it should be something that Universal release in cinemas again for another movie, for an upcoming Universal movie. Instead of showing the IMAX footage again, sorry, they could show that featurette and hype people up.
Yeah,
build some more momentum, and it would give people an opportunity to see the footage and see more of it. And yeah, I don't know. There's just so much.
I really do want to see it. I do want to see it. I do feel like it's almost too early for us to see it from the way that they described it. it sounds like it has a lot of footage from the first 2 acts of the film. So it does sound like it might be a little bit early to see that, to be honest with you. I mean, as a fan, I'd love to see it, but then on the flip side, I can appreciate that less is more, and typically I want to see a little bit less and explore more of it, like, for the first time in theaters. So it's...
For sure, yeah.
It's
Jurassic is one of those that, for me, like, I guess we all, like, as running Outpost and things like that, we kind of have to watch the trailers and we have to see it.
And people...
Other movies that I'm really excited for, I don't do that. I don't watch trailers, teasers. I go and see the movie raw.
People write in and tell us things, like, a lot, like, oh, I worked on this film, and here's the thing, blah, blah, blah. So, like, we knew that the Dilophosaurus was in the movie, and we have been operating under the assumption that it will be a closely kept secret. We thought that would be something that people would not know until the movie was out, to be honest with you. We're like, there's no way this is going to go in the trailers. This is a secret. Let's keep, very hush on this, everything like that. And then the CinemaCon footage came out. We're like, what the hell? You know what I mean? Like, we're like, why would they put that in the trailers? Like,
yeah. I started seeing tweets, people talking about the Dilophosaurus, and was like, oh no. It's like they ruined it. They ruined the reveal. That should have been in the first trailer or something. Or everybody got to see it once.
Or just nobody sees it and it's just not known. I think that I would have preferred if they would have kept that secret. Especially because, like, some of the other things that I thought would be a surprise, like the new Parasaurolophus design, just came out on random merchandise. I'm like, what is like where are the surprises?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, it's interesting, but there's one person that's very happy. It's the Twitter account for the Dilophosaurus needs love. That guy.
Oh my god!
I mean, he might as well just close the account now. He got his love, and Dominion's going to be full.
The love is coming. But. Complaints about how it was revealed publicly aside, I'm excited to see. I really cannot wait to see the Dilophosaurus in motion. Like, seriously, I 100%. Really cannot wait to see it in motion. As you mentioned, you had heard that not only you had heard that it's full animatronic, that you also heard about the colors.
Yeah, so apparently the colors are very much, if I remember correctly, inspired, very close to the original, but slightly different. So the frill, if I should have brought the script for that video in, but if I remember, it was like more yellowy on the crest.
Yeah, instead of it being black on the crest, it's like colored on the crests, and I think the frill was like less patterned, is what you said, like
patterned and colorful, but still.
And like the one thing that you had mentioned is how it's like didn't have any black stripes on it.
That's right. Yeah. It was like the original Jurassic one, but less colorful, more muted in a way, more blended and muted.
So I will be interested to see if it's like that. I'm also very curious if there might be variants in the movie, like maybe the classic.
That's the thing. Whose is it?
Yeah, well, I mean,
okay, so here's a tough question because it's hard to get specifics on this. The Dilophosaurus, the real life Dilophosaurus, didn't look or act like that, right? It didn't have a frill.
No, it did not have a frill, and
it also didn't spit. That was speculation.
Yeah. And it also is about like 22 feet long.
Yeah, so in the Jurassic world, it is that.
I'm assuming
it's a tough one. Like, how does because it changed so much. Obviously, we know like the Spinosaurus changed, but that can be attributed to they made Spinosaurus with. Mixing with other DNA, but
I think that's even if they didn't mix it with DNA, they just might have had impure DNA. I think it's pretty easy to think that this is a genetic anomaly created by, cloning, and that's why it's smaller and that's why it's different. And I'm assuming that what we're seeing in Dominion, from what they described, is going to be InGen's Dilophosaurus, because apparently it looks basically the same with some minor color changes. And if it was like,
that's what I was going to say. If another company was going to make it with more up to date, Dilophosaurus DNA and more of it, it probably wouldn't have.
It would probably be big. It would probably have that really like that sort of notched jaw that Dilophosaurus has. Like, I think it would just be quite different looking. I think they would really lean into the differences of the real world Dilo there. So yeah, I think that we're going to see a Jurassic Park Dilophosaurus, just a color variant of it, which is a shame because from what you were describing before, what I was hoping is if they were going to do a color variant, they would tap into the old concept art for the Dilophosaurs, where they had like a lot of the spots and speckling and they're really colorful. But it does not sound like that's happening. But maybe there'll be variants.
People have wanted to see this dinosaur since the first one. they've probably done their best to make it look the same.
I guess.
It's not very similar.
I just don't know why they would change the color. I genuinely do not know why they would change the colors of one of the most iconic dinosaur designs.
No, but then I guess if from what we see with Mattel and the references that they get for dinosaurs...
Yeah, do they even know the real colors?
It's like... Say again?
I said, do they even know the real colors? Or do they think that they got it right?
It doesn't seem like Universal know the real colors, and they're like we were looking at the maquettes of the JP3 female raptor, and that does not look like what's on screen.
No,
it's completely different. And, like, it's the same type, but the patterns are all different. But
and if you
that new plushie and the raptor Mattel toy that's coming up is clearly based on that maquette.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
The maquette does not represent what was in the final movie, so it's very interesting. I wonder if for this new Dilophosaurus, they were just working with what they were given maquette-wise.
You would just think that the artist there would go, hey, I know what this thing looks like, and it's one of those things where...
Maybe watch the original movie and take a little look.
Just look at the behind-the-scenes images. But unfortunately, as we know, when Jurassic Park was made, that was at a time where, like, before 3D renders were made for, like, style guides and whatnot. So a lot of times what ended up in the style guides were concept art and maquettes. And as we know, the maquettes varied both in sculptural and in paint design, like the JP3 female raptors. And if you follow Jurassic World's merchandising, guess what you always get images of on merch even? The maquettes. And then if you look at the colors of the stuff that they always try to recreate, guess what it's based off of? The maquettes. The Amber Collection JP3 Pteranodon. Is it a little too dark for the film? Is the pattern a little different for the film? Absolutely. But you know what it is spot on for? The maquette. It's like they just don't ever use the film references because the film references are basically screenshots, or doing what you really should do is go into Stan Winston's school looking at all the behind-the-scenes stuff. But they don't do that. They use the maquettes because that's what's nicely packaged in the style guide.
And it's what's provided
in the style guide. I would love to get in there and rework that style guide.
Yeah.
Very badly would like to get some accuracy.
Yeah. So maybe the Dilophosaurus is supposed to be the original Dilophosaurus, or, its kin. Its next of kin.
I like to imagine that maybe this one's going to be like a male Dilophosaurus, and the females are the ones that we see in Jurassic Park. But yeah, I mean, it might be sexual dimorphism for the Dilophosaurus, and that like maybe the variant is the male, and the one that we saw in Jurassic Park is a female. Although typically with it does sound like the Jurassic Park one has a more colorful and vibrant display, which typically you see with the males of the species. But it could, well, to be fair, colors on the crest are more colorful, so even if the patterning is less distinct, maybe there's more color on this one. But
it'll be interesting to see how it's used anyway. And that footage, sounds really good. Little disappointed with the sort of way it was revealed. Shouldn't have been described in explicit detail like that. I personally don't care that it was for people behind the scenes. That's what CinemaCon is. Mm-hmm. It's not about that. It's about the fact that it was kind of detailed in very explicit detail.
I'm sorry, I'm not traveling to Las Vegas just to see 30 seconds of footage.
No. Well, actually 90 seconds.
90, I'm sorry, but that's just not in our budget.
Still not worth it.
But I do have a question for you. Do you think the shot of the Dilophosaurus that they showed in the footage, do you think it was animatronic, or do you think it was CGI? We know that they have an animatronic for the Dilophosaurus, but do you think that footage was an animatronic, or do you think it was CGI?
Personally, I think it's going to be the same story as Fallen Kingdom, where they had animatronics for everything, but they kind of VFX over everything too, and they enhance the animatronics, but I just don't think any company is at the same level that Stan Winston was. And if you could only imagine what Stan Winston could do now.
Well, I think that's one of Stan Winston's talents. There are plenty of artists out there that are very talented and able to do these things. I think what Stan Winston's greatest talent was to negotiate with the studio and to sell a studio on taking the risk on his effects, getting enough prep time, having enough time with the director, having enough time with the cinematographer to figure it out. I think one of Stan Winston's greatest talents was being able to work with all these different people and to make it actually happen, because it's not like the artists out there aren't as capable. They're definitely as capable. I think what's happening is they're not giving them the opportunities, and I think that's where Stan Winston really shined as somebody that could basically work with the studio, work with the producers, and then find a way to make it work and get it on screen and make it look brilliant. I think beyond his own artistic abilities, I think one of his greatest abilities was able to navigate that political sphere that oftentimes circulates these things that cost money and make
That's very true, and he had the sort of, everybody knew him. He had the talent.
Yeah.
He had proved himself time and time again in a world mostly pre-VFX. To the point where people would listen to it.
Yeah,
studios would listen. They knew it would pay off.
He could navigate the studio. He would hear their feedback and find a way to sell them on an idea or find a way to work it. And I think that was probably one of his best talents. Is he knew how to navigate that political, money influence, time and budget influence sphere of the studio and the director and the producer and the cinematographer. And I think that honestly that might be one of the things that they're missing, is they need somebody that can really bring that all to the table and kind of juggle that all. Because I think plenty of these artists, you look at their individual work, you're like, damn, that's good. But they're not oftentimes able to put that in the movie, and I think it comes down to a lot of times just the studio going, oh, this seems really risky. You need how much prep time? You need to do what for that? And I think not having somebody like Stan to convince them to roll the dice, I think that's what we're really missing. Which we're missing Stan.
Yeah, and it's sad, man. I would have loved to see another Jurassic with him, especially because he was talking about Jurassic Park 4 for so long and how excited he was. He often was interviewed about it, and he was like, I can't wait. I'm just waiting on a script.
Exactly, and I think that he would have really found a good way to hybridize CGI and animatronics. I think he would have seen the value and merit in it. I bet you we would have got full-bodied animatronics that are like walking on screen, but like using like CGI to like bring out, like to remove the machinery and stuff like that, so you can have like a full-bodied walking animatronic.
Yeah.
I think that we could have had like raptors running in the field, but they're like animatronic raptors running in the field because they're like on like a little goat cart or something. And I think
just imagine at a certain point, Jurassic Park 4 in 2005, if it had actually made that deadline with Stan. It would have gone. I mean, because JP3's Raptors alone was so much further
They looked
along.
so good. They looked
the legs that John Rosengrant wore to walk up behind Udesky on the ground.
But I think
incredible.
I think we could have got to a point where it no longer had to be a person in a suit. That they could have had rigs that kind of held these things. That yes, when you film it in camera, there's stuff in there that shouldn't be there. But that's where you use CGI to then remove it.
Yeah.
Where everything that's on camera, you don't need to replace any of the texture to the skin. You just got to remove the things that are like behind it, holding it from the other side. And I think we could have got some cool things. And I mean, that's why if you look at the rewinding back to the Atrociraptor renders, notice that they're in a different posture than the Jurassic Park Velociraptors. They're a little bit more spread out. It's because the Jurassic Park Velociraptors were originally designed the way they are, so a dude in a suit crouched over could fit inside of it. So now they're designed to look a little less like they're not designed around the constraints of having a dude curled up into a ball inside of a suit to run it. So that's one of the reasons why these new Raptors have a different silhouette. It's also probably to differentiate them, but there's a practical reason for some of these things as well.
So, on a different note, Jurassic World has you could call it a shortage of video games. There are video games, but there is a shortage of
shortage
AAA titles.
Yeah, there's a shortage of quality video games. I'm just gonna come out and say it. There's a shortage of quality video games.
You had the opportunity a good few months ago now to play the Oculus Quest 2 game, Jurassic World Aftermath, and Part 2 has been announced, launching on the Quest platform on September 30th. And this should be a wrap-up to the story that you played, which, funnily enough, spoke about parthenogenesis.
In fact, that was the climactic reveal of Jurassic World Aftermath Part 1 is that blue was specifically designed for parthenogenesis, which is a form of asexual reproduction where an animal can...
the opposite of the lysine contingency.
Yeah, exactly. But it's where an animal can reproduce without a mate, and it just creates a genetic clone of themselves. So I think that's really interesting. That's how the Scorpius Rex in Jurassic World Camp Cretaceous reproduced and created the second Scorpius Rex. What's actually interesting, though, is there's a color variation between those two, and they should have been identical, but maybe it's an age thing. But anyhow. So that was the big reveal of Part 1, and then you're still on the island, and you're waiting for Wu to send in a rescue team, supported by Mills. Basically, it was like, what do you need to get? I think he asks for blue, which we obviously know that you're not going to succeed in getting blue off the island, but maybe you get like a sample of blue's DNA or something like that, and maybe then that leads to the Indoraptor's creation. So
it says here, Part 2 sends you sneaking through brand new locations, including the private office of Dr. Wu, an underground facility hidden far from the public's prying eyes. That's interesting.
Yeah.
So I wonder if that links to E750.
See, I would love if they would tie it into some stuff that we've seen in Camp Cretaceous, but the problem is like, unless Jurassic World Aftermath Part 1 ties up the story of these velociraptors that got left in the facility, it's sort of like, where are these wild raptors during Camp Cretaceous? You know, it would have been really cool if Camp Cretaceous had some wild raptors that were the raptors from Aftermath. But we'll see. There's just been like a weird thing where all of these different these like kind of canon side stories, they introduce canon elements that are obviously important to like the main media, but they don't have any intersection of their own created elements. So it's like, it doesn't really feel connected. It feels like they're all like sub-canon that's built to connect to an element, like Parthenogenesis or, you know, whatever Camp Cretaceous might be building for. But like, Camp Cretaceous doesn't mention, you know, the Troodon from Live Tour, or like the program that the Troodon was tied to, and this doesn't mention that. It's like, man, I would like to see there to be a little bit more interconnectivity between all these side stories. But so it would be cool. It would be cool if it does tie to E750 and the Scorpius, but I'm not holding my breath. But that would be damn cool.
But the fact that it is talking about secret underground facility and stuff, we know from Camp Cretaceous that's what the E750 did originate and was kept underground, and I think Wu's lab, where he does those video logs, that appears to be underground too. So, God, I mean, why not at this point? It's not hard. The season's been out for so long. You know, it should tie in, really. It
should, but then again, we also know that Jurassic World Evolution 2 doesn't have any Camp Cretaceous dinosaurs in it. So True. It just doesn't seem like, even though we're being told it's all canon and it's all connected, it doesn't seem like the studio is treating it as like main core content. Otherwise, Evolution 2 would have been provided these dinosaurs, because they're like, oh, well, we're not doing the cartoon, we're doing the movies. It's like, yeah, but they're supposed to be the same thing. You know what I mean?
They're supposed to all be.
Yeah, so if there were dinosaurs, especially some of the dinosaurs that are in Evolution are in Camp Cretaceous, they just get different designs, like the Oranosaurus. So it's like, now use the canon design that was introduced in Camp Cretaceous, not your own design. It doesn't seem like they know that that's a thing. Or apparently the Scorpius Rex won't be in the game. It's like, well, why not? You're going to have hybrids already. Just put the Scorpius in.
Dump it in there. Yeah. Maybe they're saving it for a DLC.
Maybe, but...
Buy Camp Cretaceous, the DLC.
Maybe, but it also just sounds like they weren't really cued in. Like, they weren't
prepped for it. You know, there's a screenshot from Aftermath 2. I'm not sure. I think, was it just raptors in part 1?
There were Dilophosaurs in part 1 as well. And compies... Okay. And then they're like pteranodons perched on, like, I don't think you interacted with them, but they're sometimes like pteranodons.
Well, in part 2, there's 2 screenshots that show the T-Rex, Rexy with her scars. It's such an interesting art style, this game.
I don't like it.
And the Triceratops.
Oh, interesting. I'm not sure if I actually even saw that. Where is that at?
Is it a Triceratops? See, I'm so confused. There's so many dinosaurs that have been introduced that look like the Triceratops. Oh, and I'm not. I rely on Chris for my dino.
That is a Triceratops. Yeah, I didn't see these screenshots.
Yes, I did it.
How do you not know if that's a Triceratops?
Well,
you know what? To be fair,
immediately said Triceratops, and then I saw the additional horns around the edge of the.
Yeah, that's thing. The Triceratops has them.
Yeah, but then I was thinking, hang on. I know that there's loads of dinosaurs that have been introduced in both the Mattel lines that we've gone through and in, Camp Cretaceous and other things. I'm like, hang on.
Well, the only thing I will say,
one of those other species now that I'm.
The only thing I will say is it's like basically got the Sinoceratops' colors, which is weird. It's like the Triceratops given the color of the Sinoceratops, and it's like, curious choice. They played fast and loose with the colors of the raptors, because they're supposed to be a unique strain of raptor, but it also seems like they're just sort of doing whatever they want with everything.
Yeah, I think the game, though, I guess it's a unique art style. I don't think it needs to be fully accurate. Is it gunning to be canon?
I don't know. I mean, they definitely...
It's a game. It can be whatever it wants.
I guess. Yeah, I don't know. I've got thoughts about Aftermath. It was a very polished experience, and it was enjoyable for what it was, but it also felt like it should have never been a VR game. It was too small. There's a lot of... It just sort of felt like a gimmick. It felt like, oh, here, you're finally getting that core game, except for it doesn't really feel like it's core. Like, they were just trying to jump on a VR gimmick, and it didn't... The design of the game, basically, unless you have really wide open spaces in your house, it's very hard to play. So ultimately, if you're playing it without moving around, you're probably going to get... I don't get motion sick from like anything, and I got motion sick as hell playing this game because there's no... It just wasn't designed smartly. Like for a VR game, it's a cool concept, but it's almost impossible to play in 99% of home environments. And it was very simple. It was well polished, but simple. This is just not the type of game that should have been VR. Also, if you're playing VR, the whole idea is virtual reality. Why isn't it the art style realistic? This is like the perfect opportunity to send you directly into Jurassic Park and really interact with these realistic looking dinosaurs. But instead you get something very I don't know. There is such a disconnect between what this game is and what it should have been and what people wanted that it just felt like it was designed for a gimmick, and like barely anybody has an Oculus, so nobody's going to play it. It's just, I want a AAA gaming experience that's actually like, I want them to treat Jurassic like they treat Star Wars and everything else that actually gets these quality high budget titles with really good mainstream developers. CodeSync is like a mobile developer. No offense to them, they did a decent job with the game, but it's very limited in its scope, primarily due to its format.
So there's a new trademark that you discovered called Primal Ops.
Primal Ops.
Pretty much 99% sure that it's another freaking mobile game. However, it could be something else.
It could be something else. The fact that they have a trademark, I suppose, is interesting because I'm not sure if they've...
Aftermath was trademarked.
Yeah, Aftermath was trademarked. So it's probably...
Not sure if Jurassic World Alive was. I mean, it probably is. Like, it kind of has to be, right? But I'm not sure if it was something that we discovered ahead
What was it?
Alive. Jurassic World Alive.
I think it was. But the fact that... I mean, it's weird. I don't think Jurassic World Evolution was trademarked.
Let's trademark it. Let's get it for us. But Primal Ops sounds interesting. Again, it's probably a mobile game. The description reads like every other game we currently have for Jurassic.
You can't really judge too much from the trademarks of like what type of title it's going to be, because
they cover so much. They're
very broad in their terminology and very non-specific at the same time. So it's just sort of like what we can glean from it is it's some sort of game. It is some sort of electronic gaming experience.
It's a video game of sorts on any platform. We don't know yet. But hopefully it is that AAA title. But Primal Ops, to be fair on its own, doesn't even sound like a AAA title. It sounds like a mobile game.
It does. It sounds, honestly, I mean, it's got a cool ring to it. It feels very Jurassic Park. It reminds me of like the JP3 era of games of like some
Primal Ops, Dino Defenders.
Yeah. But it's a cool name. I think that the name makes a lot of sense for when you look at where Fallen Kingdom ended with dinosaurs getting free all over the United States. What you see in Evolution 2, where like you're playing like the fishing game commission, like rounding up dinosaurs. Like Primal Ops almost sounds like you could be like the team of people sent to like wrangle and like get these dinosaurs and take care of dinosaur infestations and whatnot. I don't know. But it could be something mainstream. I'm not holding my breath, but I would love for it to be like a proper adventure survival platformer game. What we did hear for next year, we also heard that there is a Camp Cretaceous video game coming out. That's all we know is the genre is puzzle adventure. Puzzles like solving. I guess Trespasser would be puzzle.
Come on.
Puzzle
Trespass is more open world. I would class JP the game as a puzzle game.
JP the game?
Jurassic Park the game. Telltale.
Yeah, I guess.
That's a puzzle
when people
game.
say
Telltale make puzzle
games.
games.
When people say puzzle adventure, a lot of times they're referring to things like Tomb Raider and whatnot, where like you're kind of you're in these environments where you have to solve things. So there is some sort of Camp Cretaceous puzzle adventure coming out for next year. I doubt.
See, wouldn't that work better as an open world in the Camp Cretaceous style on Nublar? You play as the kids.
Perhaps. I mean, I don't know.
That would be a fun game for Camp Cretaceous fans.
Puzzle adventure, it could be really good if it is more Tomb Raider, if it is more Uncharted, if it is more... I mean, Alien Isolation has a lot of puzzle solving in it.
But it's just not what we want.
Well, maybe.
I don't Camp Cretaceous.
Exactly, but I want it to be core, not like a cartoony game, which I love Camp Cretaceous, but I would love to see a more realistic. I would like to play a video game through like the eyes of maybe characters that have a little bit more to offer in terms of like they're paleontologists, they're scientists, they're vets, they're people with experience and clout and know-how that could also provide some really interesting narrative experiences.
I mean, imagine a fully open world Jurassic World game that begins when the park is fully operational. Begins with a disaster and you're one of the staff members, InGen workers, mercenaries, whatever it is, somewhere off-site. You hear about this breakdown coming down. You hear about the Indominus Rex is now out. You hear about all these guests that need to be evacuated to safety, and the game starts there, and it's step by step by step, and then it continues. Once everybody's evacuated, the game continues. You're now on this island. You're one of the last people left, and
yeah.
Maybe they can blend that with the Jurassic World Survivor game that was, I guess, ultimately cancelled.
Yeah, it went through.
Had two spans of development, and we found and posted some artwork and some renders from that game. Unfortunately, it doesn't seem like that game will ever be made, but that was supposed to be a open world adventure on Nublar.
Here comes my unpopular opinion. I don't necessarily want a full open world game. I'd rather a more tighter curated experience, something more like Tomb Raider, something more like Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, which is more like that like it's semi-open world. Like you have those hub areas with these sort of open environments, multiple branching like areas that you can explore and paths. So each like section is sort of open and interconnecting, but it's not entirely, we're not talking like one of those just wide open worlds. I think Jurassic would be better with some tighter game design that's quasi-open hub area. So not entirely open world, but more...
We're talking more Last of Us.
Yeah, more curated hub areas and like open adventure, but also a narrative
works,
path.
And I would still classify that as an open world because it's something like Alien Isolation or Last of Us, where it feels like you could walk and just walk forever, but you can't for real.
Yeah, I'd rather something tighter like that.
The point is you're going from A to B, but I think I still would love a Trespasser style video game where it is open world. Just give us Isla Nublar, Isla Sorna, and let us fully explore them however way we want. Like, I just want to be able to walk and drive and hike around this island.
I think that you can
discover things for myself.
I think you can get that with semi-open world, though, to be fair. I think that you can have... And Trespasser wasn't entirely open. You didn't have the island completely to the expanse of, like, any direction you wanted to go. Like, there were paths... It did have limitations, so I think that something like that, where there's hub areas, and each hub area represents larger swaths of the island, but you can't just necessarily walk from any direction and end up anywhere. You can't just like walk over any mountain. There's certain curated paths that are larger, but also more curated. I think that would be a lot of fun. Honestly, I feel like they should do a spiritual remake of Trespasser. Not like an entire one-to-one remake, but I think taking the concepts of Trespasser, modernizing them, creating a new game based off that idea could be a lot of fun. And just call it Trespasser. Jurassic World Trespasser. Man. I mean, and it doesn't have to be exactly the same, but Trespasser does tried and true thing. And it doesn't have to be first person. It could be third, because I think Jurassic works best with some more adventure platforming, climbing and jumping, because Jurassic has that adventure feel, and I think that would be a lot of fun in these environments to, swing from a tree down to, kind of build into the more build mobility as a big part of the game. That way you're just not shooting dinosaurs. It's more about figuring out how to unlock gear that can make you more mobile, and figuring out how to, work your way through environments and maybe block off certain paths, and I don't know.
You would want to shoot a dinosaur in the face, wouldn't you?
Honestly, I don't find dinosaur shooting games very fun. Dinosaurs...
See, I'd like to take a shotgun, walk right up to a dinosaur and blast
it. I mean, dinosaur hunting games are fun. What I don't find fun are games designed like a first-person shooter where dinosaurs just run at you and you shoot them. They're just... The feedback loop isn't there for gameplay.
So you don't want to blast a dinosaur in the face with a gun?
Unless it was...
And see its brains and guts go everywhere?
Unless it was a hunting game, nah.
Okay.
If it was like a trophy hunting game, there could be some merit to that. But yeah, no, just dinosaurs aren't fun because they don't shoot back. They don't take cover. They just sort of run at you like...
Dilophosaurus shoots back.
Yeah, I guess that one. But yeah, I don't know.
No, but Chris, talk to me about Evolution 2. Come on. Talk to me about that.
Evolution 2, they showed off a trailer. It looked pretty cool. It looked like Jurassic World Evolution in new environments with some new customization options. The more they show about the game, the more it seems like the meta game has changed. It remains to be seen.
There's a lot of gameplay footage coming out. I'm on one now that was uploaded about an hour ago, and the guy's in Canada, so our speculation there when we were looking through the first trailer and we were talking about this looks like Canada.
Yeah.
I think it was supposed to be exactly Canada, and I think it looks like just... It's still, to me, it looks like a Evolution 1.5.
They did a game... Yeah, no, I'm totally there with you. They did a game demo, but maybe when we play the game, we'll go, wow, the feedback loop in the game is very different. Because like the big issue I had was, how do you progress? Do the missions feel repetitive? Does building feel a little pointless? Everything like that. After you played enough Evolution, it felt very repetitive, and a lot of your actions just didn't matter and didn't have a good feedback loop. So if they address that, even though it looks the same, it may feel very different. Which is what really matters.
Yes.
So, but anyhow, they opened it up. They're showing like you're the U.S. like fish park and game commission or whatever. You're like you have like a little dinosaur outpost, and then you get a call, and they're like, "Oh, a wild dinosaur was spotted near you." So you take the ranger team, and you're looking through like, I guess there's like animals that are killed, and you're like tracking like their scat and stuff like that. And then eventually the Allosaurus bursts out of the trees. Then you bring in the helicopter and you chase down the Allosaurus and you trank it. Seems like it's loosely based off of the Dominion footage where they tranked down the T-Rex. In fact, before Dominion was delayed, would not surprise me if that mission was actually the T-Rex. It was going to be that scene from the movie and they reworked it. But then they capture it and they bring it into their park and their facility, and it's sort of like, oh, it's like more of like nature preserves, but also it has the element of like, but we bring in guests and we have like, it's more like a Jurassic World-y park. So it's not canon.
So that was kind of what we speculated. You set up Jurassic World style parks in new environments. In new environments, which is used as a way to kind of keep the dinosaurs safe from outside threats, poaching.
You both breed.
Like
you both breed your own dinosaurs, as well as capture wild dinosaurs. I think there are things like people notice compies are running through the grass in some of the footage of just like in the background. Mm-hmm. So there's like wild dinosaurs that come into play, and I'm imagining that will be some of like the mission hazards. It'll be like, watch out, a wild Allosaurus is in your area and your guests are at danger. Go find it and before it finds you, or something like that. And I imagine we'll see story structure like that. And they're introducing, Pteranodons are more of fully fledged animals that can break out and interact with your dinosaurs and your guests now. And by interact, I mean attack.
We have the Mosasaurus tank, which is great. And you can recreate the infamous Jurassic World scene, and where it jumps out the water.
There are quite a few other marine reptiles. I think Ichthyosaurus is one of them. Plesiosaurus is one of them, and that's one that may or may not have a... Do we jump into that right now?
We can jump into that for sure.
So the Plesiosaurus is one that may or may not have a Dominion tie. It's been long rumored as one of the dinosaurs in Dominion, and in fact, one of the rumors have said that it's designed to sort of look like an anaconda, like its head. And the Plesiosaurus in Jurassic World Dominion very much looks like an anaconda. However, I'd be hesitant to say that that's exactly the same thing, because that rumor of its Dominion design might have come from somebody seeing the game design. So here's the hitch. A few years ago, the Jurassic World miniature war game that still is not out yet, all their dinosaurs are based off of designs from the movie.
Is that the Mondo? Was that Mondo?
No, it's not Mondo. It's a French company.
Okay. Do you remember that Mondo game that never came out?
Yeah, they canceled it. But so a few years ago, there's this miniature game that's still coming out. It was crowdsourced. It was on GoFundMe and whatnot. And one of their stretch goals was a Plesiosaurus, which is weird because it's the only dinosaur in that game that's not from the films. So it started speculation that they messed up, that the Plesiosaurus is in Dominion, and that they accidentally included that there. Flash forward even more recently, the Jurassic World Cookbook that's coming out next April. It has these, I know, but it does look awesome. I'm really looking forward to it. It has these species profiles. In the preview of the book that we've seen, the species profiles use a render of the image, and it talks about canon information. Every species that's mentioned in that cookbook is from Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom, or Dominion. The only one that's like, it has like iguanodon fritters or something like that, and we know that that's in Dominion. But then it's got a creature spot like Plesiosaurus. So you go, okay, all the other creature spotlights are dinosaurs. They're definitely in the film, definitely got renders, everything like that. So that's a pretty big smoking gun. On the flip side, you look at that and go, well, why would they put that out right now? Then, miniature war game, they removed the images of the Plesiosaurus, and they said it's under Dominion embargo. But now here's where the hitch comes. We heard that the Plesiosaurus was in Dominion, but cut from the film earlier in development. So I don't know if it's been cut or not. The thing is Evolution 2 does not have any of the Dominion designs. All the Dominion dinosaurs and designs are actually not in Evolution 2. They'll come out in DLC, I guess, down the line. But that even comes down to the fact that they're still using the Evolution 1 design for the Allosaurus. They're not even using the Battle of Big Rock design of the Allosaurus for Evolution 2 because it's technically a Dominion design. So the question is if the any new species that's never been in Evolution that's in Dominion is not in Evolution yet. They're holding them back. There's no Triceratops, there's no whatever. So the question is why would they have the Plesiosaurus in the game? Why would they be allowed to put the Plesiosaurus in the game if all these other species are being held back or their designs aren't representative of their Dominion designs? Why would the Plesiosaurus be the Dominion design? Do you know what I'm saying? That's where it sort of breaks down, where you go, well, this doesn't make sense because either Frontier really screwed up and they accidentally kept the Plesiosaurus in the game and used the Dominion design, or the design rumors came directly from Frontier's design and people just assumed it was the Dominion design, or it was the Dominion design, but then the dinosaur, the marine reptile got cut from the film and then they just kept the design. I guess we'll have to wait and see, but all I know is it's a bit confusing, but it's a very unique design. I don't know if it very much does. The head looks like an anaconda.
Yeah, so here's the thing. I am looking at... It does look like an anaconda. I'm looking at the trailer, the pre-order trailer, and again, I know it's alpha footage from the game, but it still does not look improved over Evolution 1. And that's not a criticism, because Evolution 1 looks really good for a simulator. I think it's a great game, and I think it looks good too. I just, if you freeze frame on some of it, like you freeze frame on the Mosasaur jumping out the water, and it looks like a PS2 era graphics. And again, people will misconstrue that for me just being negative, but I'm sorry, it kind of speaks for itself. I can't
say it looks like PS2, or do you mean PS3? Or
PS2 era. Look at when the Mosasaur breaks out the water towards
No!
You pause it. It looks low res.
No. It doesn't.
Sure maybe that's just because it's super fast that it's happening, but it does not look like a 2.0 version. It doesn't look like a second run of this game.
I agree that it doesn't look like a proper sequel, but at the same time,
even the trees in the background, man. They just look like the SimCity type.
Well, this is a simulation game, I am looking at the Mosasaur jumping out. It doesn't look great, but it doesn't look PS2 era. But it definitely doesn't look great.
What would you say, PS3 era?
It depends on. I can't tell how large this asset is and how close we're supposed to get to it. But I will say that the dinosaurs in Evolution 1 look better than that Mosasaur, for sure. Like you can get close up on the dinosaurs in Evolution.
Come on, you're telling me. I'll send you a picture.
No, yeah. I'm looking at. I just freeze framed it on those teeth, and those teeth are pretty. They remind me is PS2 era visuals then turned into CG. You know what I mean? Like where they're polished up and turned into like a pre-rendered.
Just look at that. Look at that I just sent you. That looks like a PS2 era Mosasaurus render. It looks like something out of Warpath or something. Which is PS1.
God.
That doesn't look great.
No, it doesn't look great, but I wouldn't say it looks PS2. Overall, you got to take in consideration that's just one asset that you're super zoomed into, and this is like a simulation game that you're supposed to see from like more of afar. I would say it looks pretty decent. The real question is what the density is going to be, what the draw distance on, like how much grass is going to pop up on screen, and how far does it draw on the screen. Because if they really keep these populations dense and the draw distance pretty far, the real thing that I'm not seeing is like advanced lighting techniques.
Yeah, it all looks very flat,
Yeah.
which might be contributing to why it doesn't look like that much of an upgrade of a game. Main Street, so I know that you can do a lot more customization with buildings and Main Street. It's all going to be very exciting, but still, it does not look too good to me in the trailer. It looks like Evolution 1.5.
So I've noticed two things. They seem to struggle with transparency textures. So like all the pteranodons, their wings, all the flying reptiles, their wings look very solid and blocky. They don't look like soft tissue. They don't seem to have any light transparency, and they also just don't seem to have any softness to them. They seem very blocky in the way that they animate. And then the other thing that I'm noticing is none of them have phinofibers.
So the Dimorphodons don't, and you can see that in this trailer. They're flying through completely bald.
And so I makes me wonder, with Dominion adding feathered dinosaurs, is that an engine limitation? Are we going, like, can they not do like hair like texture? Like obviously Planet Zoo can. Planet Zoo has plenty of hairy animals, but this is its own unique cut of that engine, and we don't know what exactly they did to make it unique. So like, does it struggle with like hair and feather and whatnot? Because it almost seems like it might. Does it struggle with transparencies? I don't know. That makes me a little bit worried for when the eventual Dominion update comes out and how they're going to handle feathered animals. Yeah, or if they're gonna just avoid having feathered animals altogether. But
it'll be interesting nonetheless.
I do like.
I'm sure this is. I mean, it says in the trailer it's all alpha footage. Yeah. They seem to be on a crunch, even though, you know.
Well, they probably had to quickly redo the entire game and remove all the Dominion references, remove all the Dominion designs.
Seems like they're on a bit of a
probably
crunch,
remove all the Biosyn style. Like they probably had a ton of new Biosyn buildings and whatnot, and now they had to quickly vehicles. They had to probably go, crap, we have to use our Jurassic World 1 vehicles and buildings and whatnot.
They should have delayed the game. If that was the case, they should have delayed the game to come out alongside the film, in my opinion.
What I will say is the new dinosaur designs look really nice in this one. Flying reptiles look nice. The marine reptiles look nice. The animations look a little bit more naturalistic this time. I'm seeing evolution, like kind of behavior patterns that seem very natural. The question is how repetitive is it, and how natural is it really? Like, does it look that way, or will it feel a lot more like a simulator? Like, will it be a little less predictable? Because I think the game overall, the light, my big hold up is I don't think the visuals are that bad, but I do think the lighting looks a little flat.
So if we, however, that is challenged by the very end 2 shots. The T-Rex roaring in what looks like some sort of auditorium, outdoor thing, and then it cuts to the wide, and boom!
Yeah, so
Jurassic Park, San Diego, Peter Ludlow's own Jurassic Park.
Yeah, and that's from what is it? What's the name of the game mode that they announced? There's a game mode that takes you through like different key moments from all the eras of all the films.
I do love that you can see in the background of that shot, you can see San Diego, you can see the city.
Yeah, no, these environments...
And it's a T-Rex, and it's very exciting to think that we might be able to take that T-Rex to portions of the city. I doubt it, but that would be fun, right?
I mean, these environments look good. The sky, like, I would say that the city in the background is just a skybox. I don't think that's anything that we can interact with, but I think that that's a really cool skybox. And it does make you wonder, like, when Dominion comes out, what will their story DLC be? Will we get these more curated experiences where we get to interact with dinosaurs in more public spaces? Because it seems like this is building towards that. But yeah, Jurassic Park San Diego, seeing that there is so cool. And honestly, that environment visually looks pretty hot. Like, it looks nice.
Yeah, those 2 shots, the lowdown, it's golden hour, it's sunset. It looks fantastic, and also, come on, giving us Jurassic Park San Diego is so dope. That's such a cool little
I never expected that. But even if you look at it, and this kind of goes why I was giving the Mosasaurus a pass, is really, look at how many, like, look at the trees, look at the bushes on the ground, look at the density. I mean, you got to figure there's a lot of objects drawn on the screen at once. So when you're
this is where the game looks very improved.
Or like
this is it.
Yeah, or like the shot of like when they're the 2 brachiosaurs walking on the left side of the screen, the aviaries are to the right. It's like kind of this green scape that's next to like an ocean or something like that. All the trees are very dense. The grass seems to be drawn in pretty far. The bushes seem to be drawn in pretty far. So we know that the trees and everything are going to be moving with the wind. The grass is going to be moving with the wind. Hopefully, I think there's new weather patterns like snow. So I think that the game is I think the game is going to look good on a TV. The real question is just how is it going to play? How much does it differ from Jurassic World Evolution? Because my biggest complaint is all the buildings we're building basically Jurassic World, the exact Jurassic World park, just in new environments. And I would have liked to see a completely new aesthetic. It's very cool that we can build those Jurassic World 1 buildings like the Innovation Center, but I would prefer there to be something much more like North American parks, Park and Wildlife Service type of, like, I would prefer this to have its own aesthetic.
Yeah, and some buildings do appear to be like that we see.
Kind of. U.S. Fish and Wildlife Services.
If you're watching the gameplay, they definitely look slightly different. And it seems like you can do a lot more with aviaries and a lot more with
there's a lot.
Boulders that you place on the ground. You can rotate them in different ways. I think there's going to be a lot more customization that is something people were asking for after.
For sure. My big thing is playing. I'm less interested in that stuff if it doesn't do anything. One thing I will give Jurassic World, the game, the little mobile game, some credit for is like building things like statues and fountains give you perks. Like it makes your guest happy. It gives you like little bonuses. So it would be cool if they find a way like, hey, a well-designed environment not only makes your guest happy and like pays you off, makes your dinosaurs happy. It influences behaviors more than just like, oh, you've got 70% plains and 30% forest. Like if little things like a aesthetically well-designed environment, if the AI can kind of read that and like it can benefit your gameplay, that's something that I would like, because that would make me more interested in doing it, because otherwise it's just for me, and I kind of like I like a feedback loop in the gameplay for that to benefit. But that's me. I know other people's mileage may vary, and I'm happy that they have the options there. But I would like those customizations options just to play into the gameplay itself.
So, Chris, I have a question for you.
Yes.
And these were submitted through Twitter. What aspect of Dominion are you looking forward to the most?
The return of the original cat, getting Ellie and Grant together. I think most of all, I'm looking forward to that. Malcolm as well, but I think more so Ellie and Grant, especially Dr. Grant. Especially Ellie as well, but like, I don't know. I really want to see Dr. Grant. I want to see Dr. Grant deliver one of his lines. You know what I mean? Like his sort of like, I'm not a doomsday guy, but I don't know about this. You know what I mean? Like I just want a Dr. Grant delivered line, and I really look forward. There's a lot that has changed in the Jurassic World universe. There's a lot more happening with dinosaurs, and I feel like learning about that and seeing that through the lens of Dr. Grant is going to be very, very exciting. I think that he's going to have a lot to offer us narratively, and find a cool way to interact with the plot. So yeah, I am absolutely.
I think I'm the same. I think it's original cast members from the first few movies, and obviously what I'm most looking forward to is the return of Paul Kirby. Who, no, wait, that's a secret. No,
could you imagine?
I'd be so happy. Dilophosaurus as well is obviously something I'm really keen to see. I'm not as excited as obviously as that siren as the Jurassic World. The Dilophosaurus Needs Love account. I'm not as excited as him.
Who is?
But no one. Not even the filmmakers themselves. There's another question here from the Mark Degler. The Jurassic Park / World films have had their fair share of excellent actors, writers, directors, composers, visual and practical effects talents. Outside of the franchise, what are some of your favorite performances, films, or TV shows they've worked on?
Oh man, that's so outside of Jurassic. What are some of my
pretty much anybody that's been in it or worked on it? What's your favorite external thing? So I'll go. I know one. Phil Tippett's Mad God is something that I have funded a little bit on Kickstarter for a good few years now. It's something he's been working on, and I believe he's finally released all three. They are incredible pieces of work, and he's been sharing some of his older work, and he even shared that piece of animation that he did, stop motion, pre-Jurassic Park, with the dinosaurs in the jungle. Did you see that?
No.
I forgot what it was called. Oh my god, it was insane. I think I retweeted it. It was pretty brutal. It was like him showing dinosaurs, prehistoric creatures, dinosaurs in the forests, in jungles, all stop motion. Very, very cool. I think Phil Tippett's work is some of my favorite stuff to look at outside of Jurassic. Likewise, if we look at Sam Neill, the film he did, Hunt for the Wilder People.
Oh, damn, that's what I was going to go for there. That's one of my...
I win. No, that's really good. Shameless.
Oh,
Paul Kirby's Shameless.
It is so funny when you think about...
So funny. Not as good as the British version, but the British version might be something you need to be British and be aware of Britain.
Be aware of Britain. I've never heard of it.
It's called Shameless.
No, I'm trying to think of some of the other good options here. It's so weird. I'm having like a bit of a brain freeze right now.
Well, I don't know if you know, but Steven Spielberg's done a couple of other movies other than Jurassic Park. He was the director of the first two.
Oh,
not bad. Director for hire kind of thing.
Yeah.
He's done some good stuff. Colin Trevorrow, Safety Not Guaranteed, probably the best film he's ever made.
Yeah, Safety is actually a genuinely very good movie. I really enjoy that. I'm trying to think of like, I really liked Bryce Dallas Howard's episodes of The Mandalorian.
Oh, I have not seen them. I've seen the episode.
I don't necessarily think they were the best episodes of The Mandalorian, but I think that she's a pretty good director, and I'm gonna be watching her directing career like pretty closely because I think there's a lot of promise. She seems to really consider story and character motivations very seriously, and I like that. She really does see when she talks about.
She's following in good footsteps.
And when she talks about Jurassic, I'm like, damn, she gets it. You know what I mean? Like she's not like, oh, there's a lot of action, explosions, oh, it's gonna be cool as hell. She talks about the complexities of it, and I'm like, oh, you get it. You get what Jurassic is. So I would love to see.
I even find. Sorry,
I was gonna say if they do a Jurassic TV show, I'd love if she had some input on directing an episode or two.
Yeah, that would make sense. I also like looking at people like what's his name? Oh my god, what's his name? John Bell. If you go through artists that worked on the original trilogy, look at their websites and their portfolios, you start to discover new artwork from other films that you've seen or haven't seen, and you kind of go down the rabbit hole and see some really exciting stuff.
You realize how influential a lot of these guys are.
Truly. This morning I watched the movies that made us, the Jurassic Park episode, which I've been meaning to watch, and they focus on Steve Spaz Williams, which everybody who's a big fan kind of has heard that name before. But it's interesting to see how he really influenced the original movie and how he was kind of the guy that went behind everybody's back and created a piece of animation showing the full T-Rex, kind of turning the boat and realizing that, oh, we can actually do this.
He did the right thing. It
was kind of him, and it's funny, like going down these little stories with these people and being like, wow, we owe a lot to him.
Yeah, I mean, modern day cinema. I mean, it would have happened eventually, but I'm not sure if it would have happened as so explosively, so successfully. Unless
you had somebody like Steve Spaz Williams going, screw it, I'm doing this.
I mean, you look at Stan Winston's pedigree. We were talking about Stan Winston earlier, but Stan Winston's another person that I think I just could go on and on about everything that he's worked on. There's so many actors, and it's like weird because like a lot of my favorite outside of Jurassic, some of these actors I like them in like very obscure things, like not necessarily their big popular ones. Actually, this is really funny. I just watched Freaky last night with Vince Vaughn.
Oh, that's so good.
And it was really fun, really violent,
movie.
Violent. But I like seeing Vince Vaughn do things like that. He's a good actor. He's a very good actor.
And the girl from Paranormal Activity 4.
Did not know that.
There you go.
The more you know.
No, Vince Vaughn. I always love seeing Vince Vaughn in stuff. I really do. He's a great actor. And it's funny because he hasn't done many serious roles. So seeing him in things like The Lost World is always great.
He plays it so well. He plays that character so well. Did you notice in Freaky that there's a Jurassic Park arcade machine that's like very much on camera in a few shots? When they're in the arcade and they're all talking and whatnot, the literal, like, they're talking with their backs turned to the Jurassic Park arcade machine. You catch it from a few different the Raw Thrills one. You catch it from a few
also,
different
that Raw Thrills one is so fun.
It is. It's not as good as the Lost World, though.
No, Lost World. They should have had the Lost World arcade game. That would have been a very choice. Okay, there is another question here. from the man himself, the man who asked the greatest question we have ever had on a podcast about the RVs. How the hell did they get here? Yaroslav asks, which director would you like to see helm a future Jurassic film / TV show? My pick would be Ron Howard and John McTiernan as a runner-up. I believe he's out of jail now. So, interesting. I wouldn't pick Ron Howard purely because I like Ron Howard. I think he makes great movies, but I find it very, by the book movies. Not really any unique style. I would go for somebody like the guy. See, I always, we've discussed this a few times on previous podcasts, and I always tend to go for directors of horrors because I'd like to see them tackle it. But we could talk about maybe John Krasinski, because that would be a perfect, if you look at Quiet Place, if you replace the monsters in the Quiet Place with velociraptors, you have a Jurassic Park movie.
Yeah. So interesting note for Ron Howard. I think Ron Howard would be a great pick if he had a TV show and he was the showrunner. So not necessarily directing the episodes, but sort of overseeing it from a higher position. I think that Ron Howard could play a really good role as a showrunner, sort of just the way what the hell is his name? Who showruns The Mandalorian? How the hell am I forgetting his name? He directed The Lion King. How the hell am I'm having a crazy
John Favreau.
Yeah. Kind of in a similar position. I don't know what was going on there, but in a similar position as him. I think that Charlie Brooker from Black Mirror.
Oh my god, yeah, that would be bleak and realistic and horrible.
Written most of Black Mirror's episodes, directed quite a few of them. But what I think is really interesting is he does a very techno-thriller-like storytelling where it's like science gone wrong. Each Black Mirror episode has very compelling characters with really compelling character arcs. It's got a really interesting use of subtle, realistic humor. And it's also got a weird sense of playfulness at times, and I think that those are all the elements between they're very Crichton-esque and they're very Spielbergian in a sense. And I'm not necessarily sure that I think not every episode of Black Mirror that he's worked on is bleak, but they're all very smartly executed. And I think that his concept with the way that he works with characters works into that techno thriller science gone wrong story, having a very complex and deep story, working your way through this adventure, and then the way that he works with humor. I think that he could be a very good fit for Jurassic. I mean, I don't think he would do it exactly like Black Mirror, but I think he'd be a very good fit for Jurassic. He would be my number one pick, especially if you had him in a leadership position on a Jurassic TV show. I think that he would be my number one pick. I think he knows how to do it, and Jurassic needs to be character driven, and it needs to be fun, and it needs to be smart. And I think that Black Mirror manages to do all those things: fun, character-driven, and smart.
Black Mirror is definitely all of that and more. And he is such a smart writer. If he applied himself to the Jurassic franchise, I feel like we could come up with something very Crichton.
Very Crichton-y.
Very serious, very dark, very bleak, but very Jurassic. Ultimately.
I don't know if I would call Jurassic bleak. I mean, I think that even Black Mirror episodes, outside of a few horrible ones, which are good, they're bleak, but they're bleak oftentimes in a playful way, and I think that translates very well. They're fun to watch. They're not a drag to watch. Only a few episodes leave you just feeling horrible afterwards.
Yeah, the video gamer episode.
Yeah, but I think
oh, what a horrible ending.
Exactly. I don't think he would make a Jurassic thing so bleak, but I think that he would work with very similar concepts of science, technology, greed, all gone wrong. And I think with him, we'd get into the nitty gritty of the realism that would come from that. Yeah. It wouldn't just be. I think he would introduce.
It would just be more realistic. I think what's his name?
Charlie Brooker.
Charlie Brooker.
Yeah, I think that he would reintroduce something that's been missing from Jurassic for a while, and I think that the way that Jurassic World, where we're left with Jurassic World now, I think that he'd be a great person to pick up with all these options of story for where's InGen, what's happened, what's going on with Biocenter. I think he'd be able to pick up this really expansive world where dinosaurs are out there now, and there's so much happening. I think he'd be able to create some really compelling.
But stick to the characters.
Stick to the characters in this widely expansive widely expansive world.
So have you ever seen the movies Blue Ruin and Green Room?
Green Room I've seen. I didn't know that.
Okay, so Blue Ruin is the one that came before it. They're not linked. I think it was originally supposed to be. I always assumed it was Blue Ruin, Green Room, Red something. He never did the Red film. But director is a guy called Jeremy Saulnier. He is one based on Blue Ruin and Green Room. The tension in those movies is something that Jurassic needs somebody to build some tension, and he would be a great pick. Those are two of my favorite.
Now, would you have him show run on like if it were a show, or do you think that he'd be more of like a good director for an episode or two, and you might want somebody more Spielberg?
I'd rather him for a movie.
Okay, see,
definitely a movie. That is how I would go with it. Just purely because he's only done a handful of movies, and those movies I really like. I think he would be great. The other one is Alex Garland. Now, if you've seen Ex Machina, that movie has so many nods to Jurassic.
Oh, absolutely.
Not just in the concept of the story, but just actual nods, like the helicopter flying over the valleys. Like it's just so many little nods that you're like, that's Jurassic. He likes Jurassic Park. I think he would be great. I didn't like Annihilation. But that's because I think I was so into the books and it was so soon, and it was a very, very weird version of the books on screen. It was his interpretation. I mean, if you've read the books, you'll understand that nobody would interpret it the same, so it makes sense.
I didn't read
the
books, so I like the movie.
And the movie is great the way it builds up.
I loved Ex Machina. Yeah, no, I think that he is a great pick. I think that, again, he handles that techno thriller, that sort of sciencey aspect that's character driven really well.
He gets it, man. He wrote 28 Days Later, and that's a great movie and a great script. I think he would be
ironically,
a great pick.
It never came into fruition, but he wrote a Halo movie script back in the day.
Interesting. Yeah. He would play with that well, I think.
And unfortunately, that movie never came. I think Spielberg was tied to that, not to direct, but to produce. And ultimately,
Spielberg's tied to everything.
Yeah, I know. Spielberg really does.
He produces everything.
It's like sometimes you look at his pedigree and you're like, how the hell does he do all this stuff? But yeah, I remember
So the final director I would love to see is David Robert Mitchell, who directed probably my favorite horror film, It Follows. Favorite modern horror film.
Interesting. That's your favorite.
I just feel I remember watching It Follows and just. It nothing in it applies to Jurassic. It's a purebred horror, but the way it builds tension, the way it plays, it's a very slow kind of horror. And then when it needs to be, throws it in your face. I just could see that working very well for a Jurassic movie. The kind of Jurassic movie that I would like to see, a bit more horror-y, gritty, realistic. I think if they post Jurassic World, if they kind of go for slightly lower budget off-breed spin-off movies that exist in the world of Jurassic World, then I think directors like him, why not?
So you mean
do a couple?
So you're talking more of like smaller budget movies that maybe each set their own identity. So there might be a movie that's like a little bit more adventure. There might be a movie that's more of like mystery. There might be one that's a little bit more horror. Like it's all set in the world. It's all set in a certain constraints. But like Jurassic films, in theory, have all tried to retain the similar tone. Now, I'm not necessarily saying that they've managed that, but they've all tried it. They've all tried to, kind of be like a adventure movie.
It's
an adventure movie with like some thriller elements, but you would like to see more of and
some science.
Yeah, you'd like to see a smaller movie that maybe leans more heavily into the thriller aspect than.
I think that's what should happen after Jurassic World 3. I think they should do a series of small movies.
Do you think TV would be better for this, though?
Movies?
Like, almost like an episode?
And then I think they should do a TV series that continues the Dominion plot. So I think there should be a TV series that stays Dominion-y and feels Dominion-y and carries on the Jurassic World franchise. And then I think they should let directors do some, I guess you call them spin-off movies that just exist in the world, and have a horror movie, have a more, like you said, more adventure-y one. Just let directors put their take on it, and some of them might work.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I always feel like TV might be the good spot to experiment with that. So instead of it being a full-budget movie that needs to, like, perform on its own, you might have an episode or two that's, like, very horror-driven and very tense of, like, a series. And I think TV, people tend to accept more serious-driven TV. In fact, we see most of the successful TV these days being these more sort of, like, I mean, they're larger-than-life stories that are very fantastical, like Game of Thrones, but it also takes itself pretty seriously. And even, I'd say, Mandalorian takes itself more seriously than some of the mainline Star Wars films. So I think that, like...
that could be a way to explore.
Yeah, I think that TV could be adventure-driven, but there could be individual episodes that are really freaking scary and like really tense and sort of horrific without pushing it into like rated R bounds.
Yeah, and I think that's what I'd like to see. I would like an R-rated Jurassic, but I just want to see some more adult themes. I want to see some more tension.
I want to see more adult themes.
Aspects.
Like, I don't necessarily believe that needs to happen I don't think the R rating's needed. I think that you could very easily keep it within the constraints of like TV or like PG-13, and I just want it to take itself a little bit more seriously. You know what I mean?
I think we can all agree on that for sure. After the Jurassic World trilogy, not to criticize it in any way, but it has really been geared towards a slightly younger audience, and that's fine. But it didn't take into account that most of the people that grew up with the first trilogy are now adults themselves. So, like, they could have played with some more deeper themes.
And also got to figure,
if
kids like
the original
deeper themes back in the originals.
At least.
Kids understood and liked the deeper themes of the originals. So sometimes there is an underestimation of audiences by studios, I think.
That's it. If you watch the first 2 Jurassic Parks, it's surprising they are PGs.
Well, they're not PGs here. They're PG-13.
PG-13, yeah. Okay. But do you have PG in America?
Yeah, we have PG.
So you have PG and you have PG-13?
Yeah, we have G,
okay.
PG, PG-13, and then R.
Interesting. Okay, yeah. I always confuses me. It's very different to what I grew up with. But they were always PG in the UK. They were just parental guidance, and then there was 12, and then they introduced 12A. So you got to be 12, but you can have an adult with you. Slightly more. And then 15, and then 18. 18 was what I imagine your NC-17
Probably,
is.
yeah. That's basically nothing comes out that rating.
No. Oh, there's loads of 18.
Well, nothing mainstream. Nothing like film.
No, nowadays as well. But yeah, I think we can all agree. It'd be nice to have some more adult themes in a Jurassic, and I think either a more mature TV show or a spin-off movie or something like that would come. I'd love to see a Jurassic Park movie titled Jurassic Park something.
Not
Jurassic Park for this or that, just Jurassic Park.
It would be cool to get a Jurassic Park movie or show or something like that. And obviously, it can continue certain concepts that are introduced in Jurassic World, but it would be cool if it was set to be prior to Jurassic World era, so we can kind of revisit the Jurassic Park aesthetic, Jurassic Park story loops, and find a way to maybe tie it to the modern Jurassic World era in a way that it all kind of plays together. But ultimately, what I would like it to be is, no matter what happens, all I really want is to be smart, script-driven, story-driven, character-driven. I just want an experience, whether it's super gritty and serious, or it can be a little bit more adventuresque and playful. But what I want it to be is it just kind of take itself and the world seriously, and sort of constrain itself to the rules that were set out in Jurassic Park. Which I don't think Fallen Kingdom did, with things like Owen being overtaken by pyroclastic flow and the fight scenes. Like, it was all a bridge too far for me, and I would like to maybe dial it back to what made Jurassic Park so appealing to me is it oftentimes felt like it could have been in our own world. It kind of played by the real world rules, if in our real world you can clone dinosaurs. And listen, it's not perfect. You have a lot of creative freedom to experiment with that, but what's important is it feels like it's possible, and Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom started feeling a little bit more larger than life.
Yeah, no, I think we can agree on that. Chris, it's been nice speaking with you. We missed the 6.
I guess I don't know what happened to him.
Yeah, but
he was supposed to be here.
With you. Yeah, he was, but he wasn't. But it's okay. We talked about CinemaCon. We talked about that Dilophosaurus. We talked about Aftermath.
Overall, I do want to leave it with one more quick question. Are you overall positive about where things are heading and what's coming next? Like, whether or not Evolution 2 looks more like Evolution 1.5, are you excited for it?
For Evolution 2, I am. Return to Jurassic Park made me love Evolution 1.
Totally there with you.
And I think the Evolution 2 looks great. I have my thoughts on it, but ultimately it looks like a great game, and everything that everybody's saying about it sounds great.
I'm excited to get my hands on it. I don't think that they're necessarily doing the best job of showing how it's new, other than the environments, but I'm excited to get my hands on it because it sounds like it might be a good time. And I'm very interested to explore the narrative. Even though the narrative's not going to be canon, I'm still going to be very intrigued by it, how they tie the post Fallen Kingdom themes into a sub-canon story. So yeah, I'm excited for that. I'm excited for I'm excited to finally see a trailer for Jurassic World Dominion. The CinemaCon footage has a lot of promise. I don't think they should have done it that way.
It sounded really good.
Yeah.
That whole featurette sounded like a really good thing. That hopefully is something. I'm hoping that nearer the release, it's something Universal either put in theaters or they use to promote the movie online.
I'm sure that we'll see a variation of that cut for promotion at some point. Maybe not the exact same cut, but a variation of it for public consumption eventually. But that sounds like it's going to be a while.
It sounds like the way it played. It does sound like it's something that is meant to be seen by the public, not just the CinemaCon audience. Just the way it was setting everything up. And all those interviews with the cast members and Colin, it sounds like it wasn't just for CinemaCon. It wasn't just a sizzle reel of footage. It was more. So I think we will see that at some point in time. Or like you said, a variation of that, an updated version or cut down or something.
Yeah.
But I'm excited. I mean, any listener of the pod who has continued to listen knows that my thoughts on Dominion, and after the first two, my hopes aren't high. But it is looking very promising. And I think there will be a lot of good. I think it is the movie. When Colin says it's the movie he's been wanting to make, I think he's true in that. I think we've reached a point where they've proved themselves technically to the studios, right? And they can do what they want in this one. And I think it will feel more Jurassic. And I think just seeing Sam Neill, Laura Dern, Jeff Goldblum on screen properly in locations, environments that aren't courtrooms, I think will really make it feel Jurassic again.
Yeah, totally. And I'm excited to see how they interact with the new cast. And honestly, I think that I could really end up enjoying the new cast, because I just always felt like the reason why I didn't quite love Owen and whatnot is because he just didn't have the right type of characters to bounce off of. And I think with the original cast, whether or not it's the original cast or not, the roles that they are filling is exactly what I felt like has been missing. So I think it's going to be really Owen now is filling a very crucial type of role to juxtapose against the original cast, and I'm excited for that. So
yeah, I'm excited for the new cast members too, DeWanda Wise.
Yes, who we heard might be leading the franchise post Dominion. Yeah.
So we will see. So there's a lot to come. There's a lot to look forward to. As always, head to JurassicOutpost.com to check out the latest news. And if you're listening to this on YouTube, click on the channel. There's some new videos, both on Camp Cretaceous and that Dominion footage that you can check out. And I guess until next time.
Hey, hopefully it'll be soon.
And a one-liner.
Woohoo! Yeah. Okay.